Continue to bring you some of the day's biggest top stories. We want to keep you, though, in New York City and hear right now from officials as well as members of the FDNY firefighters' attorney, Nick Paplin, will respond to shocking revelations that the city of New York and DEP secretly maintained 68 boxes of ground zero toxin records while publicly denying their existence for decades in the 9/11 aftermath. Let's listen in.
That's the UFA General Counsel. As we've heard, the city has finally released 68 boxes of records related to the toxins in the air on ground zero. Records that have been suppressed for years and years, and as New York City claimed, they could not even be found. New York City firefighters demand to know who in New York City government hid those documents all the way back in the beginning and continued to keep those documents held all these years. On 9/11, I went to my first fire. While I was on one end of the building in the collapse, my father was at the other side of the Trade Center with Rudy Giuliani. They hunkered down at 75 Barclay Street, and my father, who was involved in the police department during the bombing of the World Trade Center bombing in '93, announced that to Giuliani that I know there's asbestos in the building. You can actually see it in the air. You could see it it's sparkling in the sunlight outside. And at that point in time, building engineers went and got those paper masks and actually handed one to Giuliani, my father, and everyone else in the room. Rudy Giuliani knew before the second tower even came down that there were toxins in the air. And somehow, over the next few hours and days, that message was suppressed. They had real testing done. And when that testing was done, it was suppressed and everyone was told the air was safe. People would have made different choices. You know, we all know at this point how many people are sick. There's 140,000 people in the World Trade Center healthcare program. We really need to know who lied then and who kept this lie, you know, alive by hiding all the information that we've been asking for. This FOIL was asking for all the testing documents and memos related to the 9/11 toxins, along with City Hall's memos from the fall of 2001, including a memo sent to Deputy Mayor Harding that estimated there would be 10,000 claims against the city at a minimum because of the exposure, and they knew it. And they chose to lie, and they chose to hide these documents. We need to know who lied. By now, we all know what toxins were in the air, unless, of course, these documents show there are things that we didn't know. But we need to know who lied initially. I think it's important for people to know that there were people back then that chose to protect the city's interests and not protect the interests of New York City firefighters, other responders, and the civilians that were down there. That wasn't the only betrayal. Years later, we had to go down to Washington to fight for the World Trade Center healthcare program. Had these documents been available then, it could have helped prove our case to get that life-saving healthcare more available quickly. It would have been less of a fight. It would have also helped the doctors to help diagnose people. Had they had all the documents at the time, we could be looking, right as we speak, we could be looking at more illnesses that, you know, have latency periods of 25, 30 years based on chemical exposures. These are all things that we could have been looking at and studying for the last 20 years, and the city chose to keep them hidden. So now we have 68 boxes that have surfaced. Only 24 of them have been reviewed. We need to have all of these boxes open and made available. As I've been told, only 24 of the 68 have been made available. We also need to know who in city management has decided to keep these boxes hidden for all of these years. Constantly, we've asked for these documents. At the end of the de Blasio administration, we asked for these documents, and they never surfaced. So the 140,000 people in the World Trade Center healthcare program deserve to know. Their families deserve to know. The families of those that have died deserve to know. My father passed away 2.5 years ago from World Trade Center related illnesses. My family needs to know that the people that lied to everyone else, again, my father was exposed from day one, but everyone else that was exposed, they need to know. Their families need to know who lied to them. They need to be held accountable. But the firefighters in the firehouses in New York City and the other first responders in New York City need to know that, God forbid, something else happened. And the city knows that they've got to decide between their liability and what's best for the long-term health and lives of New York City firefighters and other first responders, that they'll make the right choice. The city needs to be upfront and accountable for what has been done in the past, but also what could happen in the future. New York City firefighters deserve to know that the city will be transparent and accountable. God forbid anything else happen in the future. So I would like to thank City Councilperson Gail Brewer for getting us to this point, and I'd also like to thank 9/11 Health Watch for working with us to get these documents brought today, but the fight is not over, and I'd like to bring up TJ McManus to discuss from here.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you to the members of the media for coming today. My name is Thomas McManus from the law firm Sullivan, Papain, Block, McManus, Kafinas, and Canava. We are general counsel to the Uniformed Firefighters Association, and we represent thousands of 9/11 victims in their VCF claims. Today's a bittersweet day. It's bittersweet because we finally have the first semblance of transparency from the city. We finally will begin to know what they knew and when they knew it. But it's bittersweet because it took 24 years to get here. It's bittersweet because it took litigation, FOIL requests, and it took the Department of Investigation, through the efforts of Gail Brewer, to compel the city to find these documents. It's ironic that after all that time, they didn't find 68 pages hidden somewhere in the bellows of the DEP. They found 68 boxes. Did they lose a room where all these records were stored? It's shocking, and it's disheartening, and quite frankly, it's appalling. How could this happen, and who was behind it? Was it intentional misconduct, or just incompetence? What did they know, and when did they know it? That is what we're looking to find out here. And the way we're going to find out, quite frankly, is through these boxes. The truth is, this is just the first step in understanding everything that Andy was just talking about. These boxes are going to be culled through by the 9/11 Health Watch. And when they do so, we're going to learn more and probably have more strands to follow to get to the bottom of what happened here and why this information wasn't disclosed. It could lead to more questions, but it's sending us on the path to truth. Now, beyond just the terrible lack of transparency, I ask, at what cost was that lack of transparency? The World Trade Center Health Program has been around since about 2011. What could those doctors have done with information that's potentially in those boxes? If those boxes contain information about toxins that were in the air, shouldn't that have been studied for the last 24 years? Shouldn't that have been studied by the researchers back in the years following 9/11 or by the Health Watch since 2011? We add new cancers to the registry every so often, every couple of years. Would those cancers have been added earlier? Would the studies be further along? These are life-saving, life-altering medical information that we should have had all along. As Andy put it, firefighters need to know. They need to know that if they go into a terrorist attack, if they go into an explosion, if they go into a situation where their life is in danger, they need to know that when they come out, if they come out, that they or their families will get truth, will be told what they were exposed to, so they can make the smart decisions in dealing with their health, and they can adjust their lives accordingly. Transparency is not optional. The firefighters and first responders answered the call on 9/11. They did so despite the risk. Their sacrifices, their courage, and their service is a debt we all owe, we as New Yorkers and we as Americans. It's a debt that we will forever owe. The least we can do is give those first responders and their families truth. We all said we would never forget. It's time to learn the truth. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
If the city doesn't comply and release the remainder of these documents, what's the union's next plan of action?
Well, we'll continue to demand that the FOIL be answered. I believe at some point they're going to have to open the rest of the boxes. If we have to go into the next administration, we're letting them know that we expect this to be a top priority, to come clean to what happened in New York City 24 years ago. 24 years ago, they made a choice to hide the evidence of what happened in 9/11. They should have used that evidence and those tests to prepare for the long-term health care of the people that were down there. Their decision they made was to just hide it. They could have been preparing and doing studies on what to expect. Instead, the studies came from the outside, and we had to wheel sick and dying New York City firefighters and police officers down to Washington to show them this is what happened. Had these documents been more readily available and studied ahead of time, we wouldn't have had to go through that. So what we're looking to do is hold this administration accountable to open the rest of those boxes. If not, we'll carry on to the next administration. But those boxes will be open, the evidence will be found, and we're going to find out exactly who lied to us back then. Who knew? Because they made a very poor decision, a criminal decision, to hide it instead of studying it, to hide the truth instead of learning from it and preparing for it. We all knew that there were things down there. We should have been working on anticipating the health problems. Instead, we waited for the victims to show up, and the government denied they were even there until the evidence was overwhelming.
Have you had conversations with the Mangami transition team about what you expect and what you would like to happen here?
Yes and no. I was at the transition team meeting today, and it was it was a large crowd there. I haven't had face-to-face meetings yet about these issues, but we do plan on it.
A question about, has anyone in here seen the 24 boxes so far?
We haven't seen them yet, no.
Who has, was Gail Brewer and
Gail Brewer, 9/11 Health Watch, which we work with, saw the boxes one day last week.
And got to look at inside some of them, right?
24 out of 68 of them they were allowed to look inside of. The other ones, they were off limits at the time.
So is there some sense of, just to give us an idea of what's there, is it, October 3rd, 2001, air contains blank? Is it data like that? Or
we believe it's a lot of studies. They've said it's a lot of studies. And again, some studies have been released outside of what's in those boxes. What we're trying to make, the message of today is, we hope and
All right, members of the FDNY union leaders coming together to talk about the case involving several former firefighters in this new discovery investigation of 9/11 toxin records. We'll keep an eye on this story for you, no doubt, on Live Now from Fox. It is a new hour